You're listening to Profit Sharing in the Real World. I'm Danny Murphy, your host, and I'm talking again with my good friend, Dick Erickson. Dick, how are you doing today?
Great. Good to be here.
We're going to talk about something you love to talk about. You've been talking about it a lot lately, but different perspectives come into play. And what we're going to talk about today is why are stakeholders one of the main keys to a successful business?
Thank you, Danny. I mean, it's near and dear to my heart as I've studied business over the 40 years. And what comes to mind, Danny, is we try to figure out what our job is. And the business I was in, it was how to meet the customer's needs. And to do that, I could have equipment that was similar to anyone else. I had tires that was similar to other people and all that. And when I really found the issue was who had the employees that became what I call stakeholders, people who have a stake in the business, and they take it to heart, and they do it in such a manner that they go the extra mile. They work faster. They keep their own feelings at bay and check, and they're worried and concerned. Not so much worried, but they're concerned that they meet the customer's needs.
Meeting the customer's needs. So they were all after the same objective.
Amen. Every person understands that. It has to be ingrained in them. They take it on. If they can't take that on, they're not going to meet the needs of the team.
So there's a difference between a stakeholder, and we've talked about this before, a stakeholder and a shareholder or a stockholder. What about that?
Stockholders have ownership in the company. So they come at it a different way. Stakeholders' job is to take care of the customer. And to have a good organization, it's a given. We got to have profitability. We want to grow the business. This makes it good for everybody. But it's how the customer gets treated is what really makes this work.
So they're stakeholders in the sense that they have a stake in the success of the company as opposed to a share of the company.
Amen. They could be both, but what we're talking about today is what it takes to make the customer happy and trust you.
And now you ran into somebody, you had a conversation with somebody recently who said, well, our employees are number one. Our employees are a top priority. What's the difference between that and people having a stakeholder mentality?
This was a good company that I heard this from. And the thing was, I was trying to differentiate it, but it made me think about if I was in a company and I knew that I was well thought of and I had a secure position in that company, as long as I did what the boss wanted me to do and played the game out, I could be protected. I had a place in this company. A stakeholder doesn't think this way. He already knows what he's in. And his deal is, how do I take care of the customer? So it isn't about him in his mind, it's about the customer. And if he does that job right, he's going to be well taken care of.
So the objective for everyone is to keep the customer happy. I've talked about the soccer metaphor, and I'll go to that just for a minute. The objective always is to get that ball in the back of the net.
Yes.
It's universal for both sides, really.
Yeah.
And most teams, they have one guy, they want to get it in his hands or in his feet because they know that he's the guy that has the instinct and just the ability to be in the right place at the right time.
Staying with that, as I watched that, a lot of these, there are in fact stakeholders. There's probably a person on every great soccer team that can play any position there. Some better than others, and the one they're going to try to put, just like in a business, is put our greatest talent where it's needed for that job. And every job has got uniqueness. In our mechanical business, in my business, I needed a perfectionist doing my alignments because that's the person that did it the best. But his heart and soul is in it no matter where he is. He could probably fill in. So what I saw in a soccer that really was, gave me a good feelings was how everyone worked together. What's it take?
So we've talked about soccer a little bit, that the idea that you have to be a team player. Everybody has to be a team player in order to have success as a team. The objective of most of the other players is to get that ball to the striker so he can put a shot in the back of the net.
Right.
And so in any business, it's just as important to have people have that team player mentality. And the thing that creates that is that they are all stakeholders in the success of the company.
Amen. So you're looking for the in the metaphor of the soccer was to get it in the business that I was in, the tire business, was to get a happy customer who paid his bill and left with a smile on his face.
So happy customers, that's the ultimate objective. And how do you get there? How do you get that stakeholder mentality? How do you develop that?
Well, I think you got to really know what you're in and how to do it. And then there's whys. We've heard all the little acronyms and stuff like that, but the point is to understand your business and understand what type of business to do different parts of the business to really get the ultimate job being done. So you really have to have a burn in you, and it comes from the top, and in time it'll be throughout the whole system if it's done right. So I don't believe in top management type systems that micromanaging is to get the people on board, get them trained, get the right people in the right spots, and then get out of their way because you're in their way when they're working. They got a job to do. They don't need to stop and ask questions. They need to know their job well enough to think everyone is depending on everyone doing their job when it needs to be done.
So when bosses or employers say that our employees are our number one priority, that sounds great, but in some cases it's lip service.
It is. But let's go back to that for a second, as you said. Number one, it should be that they're very important to the deal. We're not questioning that. But a stakeholder is a higher being of that. It's taking that person who knows he's got a secure job, if he does his job right, and then all of a sudden his deal moves off beyond himself to that customer. And it's really, if that customer leaves happy, what's it take to get there?
What does it take to get there? What does it take to achieve that goal? And how did profit sharing contribute to meeting that goal?
Well, we hear it all on. They said, so-and-so is getting rich and we're not getting anything. We don't want that mentality. We want it that we're all in this here. We've got an objective to do to make the customer happy. We're here to make some money that'll keep us in business. And beyond that, if we can have a good profit bill, is that we know we share in that. Everyone shares in the excess beyond taking care of the business with taking care of expenses. That's the profit sharing. And when they know they are, and that's kind of the ultimate, but they don't even think that way after a while. They know that's already in place.
So that as the business grows, as the business becomes more successful, and as the owner becomes more successful, the employees, the stakeholders do as well.
Yes. I mean, it was amazing when I got my mind off from what I shared with them as an owner. Initially, I thought, is that too much? Is that such, well, it hurt the business. If I hurt the business, this isn't going to work. And then realizing all of a sudden the energy that I saw out of the employees and productivity, it was more than giving back. I was making more by sharing with them than I did when I had all the profits when it was all said and done.
And it's got to be as good for the owner as it is for the stakeholder.
That's right. And you even get past that. When it starts working, it's amazing. You'll limit your pay, take it out because you got other ways of doing to make sure that the group's being taken care of. Because the owner has a lot of responsibility, not to get greedy, as some people would say. Well, no, that can happen. I'm the boss. I can take what I want. No, I can take what's there that should be ample for the boss.
So your managers and your assistant managers, they wore the same kind of clothes as the tire changers and the mechanics, right?
Yes. Our deal was was white shirts, which I first started, and I got an assistant manager, and he said, I came from, no, we got to have dark shirts because dirty business and all that, get your hands dirty. And he went out to see the company on the West Coast and saw everyone in white shirts, and he said, came back, everyone is back in white shirts. We wanted the image that we weren't, he didn't walk into something kind of drubby or downcast. It was a business, and if you in management, got your shirt a little dirty, you had another one in the back room, get another one on, let's go.
So the managers and assistant managers, their shirts might have stayed a little bit cleaner
Yeah,
during the day, but at any time they could step over to the tire changing machine and do that job while they were
absolutely, Dan. Let me give you an example of that. What I found when I was starting to really see some strong stakeholding with businesses that had strong stakeholders, I would defy some of the people I was came into that operation with and said, "Can you pick out the manager?" And what I saw happening is the manager filled in a slot that either someone didn't show up that day and they needed a little extra help with it. This is when they were busy, you noticed that everyone, all hands on deck.
all hands on deck. Well, Dick, we're running out of time today. Is there anything else you'd like to manage to discuss pertaining to stakeholders versus the employees being the top priority?
I just want to encourage people to think about this because what it did is transformed the type of business I had to what I ended up selling my business because of age and all. But the point is, it developed into a great business, a great business. I wasn't up to what I had some benchmarking of other firms, or I had another firm that was had better numbers than we had, but we were inching up to that. And it all started happening. It happened because of our stakeholders. Stakeholders was the primary deal. Now, you got to have locations, got to have good equipment, good tires and all that, but that person was the differential.
Well, folks, you've been listening to Dick Erickson talking about the stakeholder mentality, which was very important to his business. Really, he regards that as one of the main keys to the success he had in the tire business. I want to thank you for being here, Dick.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
And I want to thank our listeners for being out there. I hope you have a great week. You've been listening to Profit Sharing in the Real World. Dick Erickson has a book out on Amazon called Profit Sharing in the Real World, and also a book called How the Rubber Meets the Road. Have a great week, folks.